The Chicago River double reflection. They say the Chicago River shows the city's reflection every night. Buildings, lights, bridges, all mirrored perfectly in the water. But what if one night it didn't? What if the reflection you saw wasn't your city at all? That's exactly what happened on a foggy night in October 2018. Cameras captured something impossible. Officers, residents, and technicians saw it too. A secondary skyline beneath the water, with buildings that do not exist. Lights where there shouldn't be any, and shadows that did not match reality. For over an hour, the river held a secret that defies explanation, one that has never been solved. And that night, anyone standing near the water could feel the city itself shift in subtle, unexplainable ways. The night was unusually cold, around 42 degrees, with a steady drizzle softening the edges of streetlights and making fog curl in twisting waves across the surface of the river. The water moved quietly, almost sluggishly, as if holding its breath. Cameras along the riverfront recorded as usual, meant to capture nothing more than reflections of the city lights and the occasional boat drifting past. At exactly 2:58 a.m., something appeared in the footage. At first, it looked like a trick of the light, a shimmer that did not line up with the buildings on the shore. Then it became unmistakable. The skyline mirrored in the river was wrong. Buildings appeared where none existed. Windows blinked in sequences that did not correspond to the actual structures. The reflections seemed deliberate, moving with a strange rhythm, as if guided by an unseen hand. Officers on patrol reported the first unusual sightings shortly after 3 a.m. One described a sudden shiver running down his spine, a feeling that the city was not quite right, that the river had become a mirror to another version of reality. Security logs from multiple cameras confirmed these observations. One camera facing the merchandise mart captured lights in windows where none exist. Another camera mounted on the North Bridge recorded faint shapes and structures beneath the water that have never appeared in any map, planning record, or historical archive. Environmental sensors along the river indicated a brief but intense spike in electromagnetic interference during the anomaly. The spike lasted only as long as the reflections persisted, and its origin could not be traced. Residents walking along the river described the experience as surreal. Fog and drizzle distorted sound and light, making it feel as though the river had shifted into another dimension. Some reported hearing faint, distorted noises beneath the surface, a low hum that sounded like a voice trapped underwater. Others noticed ripples in the river that moved against the current, subtle but impossible. One resident wrote that the water appeared almost black at certain spots, reflecting buildings that no one had ever seen. The double reflection lasted until 4:02 a.m. When the fog lifted, the river appeared calm and ordinary, yet the memory of the impossible skyline lingered like a shadow in the mind. Camera logs provide the clearest record of what occurred. Time-stamped frames show structures with blinking lights where no permits or construction records exist. One frame taken at 3:12 a.m. shows a tall building with a red blinking light at the top. Investigators cross-checked the frame against every city archive and confirmed that no such structure exists anywhere in Chicago. Officer body cams corroborated the footage. One officer wrote that the river appeared to hold an entire other city beneath it, lights in windows where no windows exist, and shadows that moved independently of the known light sources. For several minutes, digital clocks on nearby buildings flashed strange numbers and letters before returning to the correct time. Only structures closest to the river were affected, and no explanation was ever found. Amateur videographers who frequently filmed the river at night captured the same anomaly. One described seeing the reflections move like waves of memory rather than water. Others noticed that shadows did not align with any known light sources. A small group of photography students reported that, when reviewing their footage frame by frame, the reflections seemed to shift positions slightly every time the camera angle changed, almost as if the water itself were alive. Technicians analyzing the footage ran every possible test. Infrared imaging, thermal imaging, and frame-by-frame analysis all confirmed the images were genuine. There were no glitches, no distortions, no evidence of tampering. One technician wrote in a log at 3:45 a.m. that everything else in the city appeared normal. Yet something impossible had appeared, something that seemed deliberate and intelligent. As the night progressed, the fog thickened and the drizzle became steady, creating a rhythmic tapping on the metal railings and the surface of the river. Streetlights reflected on wet sidewalks, doubling the sense of a distorted world. Officers and technicians described a growing unease, a sense that the reflections were not just visual anomalies, but something aware, observing, perhaps testing them. Every movement in the water seemed synchronized with the hum of the city's distant traffic, yet utterly foreign, as if the river itself had a consciousness. Some pedestrians reported other odd phenomena that night. One man wrote in his journal that his reflection in a puddle across the street did not match his movements. A jogger claimed the fog briefly revealed the outline of structures behind him, but when he turned, nothing was there. Residents near the water reported subtle temperature drops along the banks, brief but noticeable, coinciding with the times when the double skyline appeared in the footage. Compasses held near the riverbank wavered slightly, spinning in place before returning to normal. Even the river's current seemed to slow for moments too precise to be coincidental. Logs from the cameras show faint, repeating sequences of lights on the non-existent buildings. Some frames appeared to form geometric patterns or symbols in the windows, but when analysts tried to isolate them, the patterns changed in subsequent frames. No one could determine whether it was a trick of light, a recording glitch, or something more inexplicable. Footage from different angles all showed the same structures, synchronized perfectly with the electromagnetic spike. The anomaly faded at 4:02 a.m., the moment the fog lifted. By 4:10 a.m., cameras recorded nothing unusual, yet those involved still felt the river had held a secret and then erased it. No explanation has ever been provided. Municipal records and city planning documents confirm the reflections do not correspond to any physical reality. Environmental data shows no irregularities other than the brief electromagnetic spike. Some suggest it was a rare atmospheric refraction unique to the river. Others believe it may have been a glimpse of an alternate version of the city, a reality folded over our own, visible only under specific conditions and only at certain times. Even months later, people continued to report strange occurrences along the river. Streetlights flickered in odd sequences, brief and irregular. Passers-by claimed to see shapes in the fog that vanished the moment they blinked. Boat operators noted ripples in the water with no source. Amateur photographers reported capturing faint double images in their lenses, as if the reflections were trying to be recorded. The city remained silent, and yet the logs, videos, and reports remain intact, verified by multiple independent witnesses. The river appears ordinary today. Boats drift past, city lights shimmer, and fog curls off the surface on cold October nights. But if you stand in the right place, when the air is cold, the fog is thick, and the river is calm, you may see it too. The other skyline, the one that does not exist. And when you do, you have to ask yourself, was it just a trick of light? Or is the river showing us something we are not meant to understand, waiting silently for the next person to see it?